who I am. My name is Julian. I've been running Parisoma here for the last 2.5 years, and Fabre Novel, which is a consulting company that owns and operates Parisoma. And what we are is we're a co-working space primarily. So we have 80 startups and 130 people who work out of here, and we throw a lot of events. In the last 2 years, we've thrown about 300 events. So we kind of have this formula down for doing all kinds of events management, including sponsorships. So Parisoma in the last 2.5 years has gotten very well known as one of the best co-working spaces in San Francisco, around the world. I've spoken about co-working in several places, and the Parisoma brand is very well known in this whole area, and I've spent $0 in marketing ever for Parisoma. But people will see our logo in lots of events and lots of places. And it took a little while to figure that out, but that's how really we got ourselves out there. And so now, while we have sponsored things as well, we also have people sponsor the space as a whole, and our individual events too. So that's kind of my story. What I want to talk about is what are sponsorships. So I want to actually have everyone kind of go around the room and say, what do you think a sponsorship is, and what type of sponsorships are you looking for? You're here for a reason, because you're trying to find sponsors for a specific kind of thing. What is that? So why don't we start over here to the right, and say your name as well, please. I'll start with Vicky.
Sure. So, well, sponsorships are basically companies that provide money to get marketing.
Okay.
What was the other question?
And what type of thing are you looking to get sponsored?
Well, I mean, we can always use more sponsors with Parisoma.
Okay. Gotta works with Parisoma. Okay.
And actually, on that note,
sorry, that's all right.
A brief commercial interruption.
Yes.
No worries.
So as Julian was telling you about Parisoma, we offer a lot of classes here. If you want to check out more of them, we have those in the flyers. We are always trying to provide a better educational experience, and as such, I would really appreciate it if you fill out this survey of the class at the end of it, so that we can provide Julian with more feedback and we can make this a better program for you. There's going to be a little box for feedback where I check you in, and you can drop it there on your way out.
And are you looking for sponsors?
At the moment, no.
All right.
So what is sponsorship?
Yes.
I would say it's an opportunity to match, big brands with another key audience. The intersection of, driving additional awareness, business opportunities, just anything to raise the profile. And I'm currently investigating working with Tech Central SF and doing some quasi-raising sponsorship dollars with them. And what I'd like to know is how you sell the value to the potential sponsor in terms of what they get, matching it to their needs and requirements and stuff.
Yeah, I think the sponsorship is also an opportunity for product or service to promote themselves and market themselves to a specific target audience. So if it is at an event, or if you have a product or service that's for entrepreneurs, you would do it at a place.
And what type of thing are you looking at?
Along that line, I'm also in the flexible workspace industry as well, and we have 2 spaces in San Francisco, and so we're having an event that's coming up, and we do our events not as many as you guys do, but we do want to get to a place where we readily can have these sponsorships and give certain products, certain services, and certain people, whoever want to have that limelight, to the right audience.
Okay. Which space?
I work at ServCorp.
Okay.
Hi, sponsorships for me are similar awareness of that company's brand in exchange for something, and so personally what I'm looking for is, could be nonprofit or startups seeking sponsorships in the form of money, which is always great, food or drinks, whatever.
I'm Jonathan, and I would say that sponsorships are a way for an organization or a company or a person to get exposure to a specific group of people that they wouldn't normally have exposure to. So the value for the sponsor is getting in front of smart people like us, set space or whatever. There's nothing that I'm really trying to get sponsorship for. I just want to learn more.
Hey, I'm Chelsea. I see sponsorship as an alignment of values and a value exchange, whether there's money transferred or not. Sometimes sponsorship can be as simple as like a partnership or a meeting thing. I am working on something called Startup Abroad, which is to get early stage entrepreneurs in the same house living and working together. So I'm looking for sponsorship for that.
Hi, my name is Reza. I work for Parisoma too. So I'm here because I want to find more sponsors for Parisoma because it's part of my job. Yeah, so basically people give us more coverage, like media sponsors, maybe money for our events or money for the space, anything really along those lines. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lynn, and similar to other people's definition of sponsorship, my idea is just to match the brand awareness with a niche market. And so I recently moved here from LA, and the reason I'm here is because I'm producing a web series on Silicon Valley, and so I'm looking for sponsorships.
Hi, I'm Anna. I spoke to you yesterday, Tessa.
Yeah.
I am currently a co-owner of a coach training company, Institute for Global Listening. We do workshops on listening and communication, and we are in our second phase. We have moved from sponsoring our own workshops, which, as you know, is not cheap, and doing a lot of work both nationally and internationally. So we're looking to refresh, and all of this time that I've been in business for the last 15 years, I've been looking at how do I get sponsors to go along with what we're doing, because I'm not versed at how to really, I think to your word, show the value. Like, I know what the value is. You come to a course, you'll be clear what the value is, but when I'm sitting down and talking to someone about sponsoring one of our courses or several of them so that it's more accessible to just the general public, that's where I'm not as fluent in my communication as I like to be, right? So I'm here to get some information and really understand how to really language what I need. And then also that segues me into, we're getting ready to start a television project, and so I definitely am needing sponsorship for a television project. We've gotten it for a pilot that we've already done, but in terms of ongoing support, which is another way for us to get our work out there, I think it's useful to have this information, really understand how to attract lots of sponsorship dollars. So, and I know it's out there. It's just a matter of knowing where to look.
I'm Jesse. I'm managing an adventure tourism company, and so we're looking for sponsorship. So for us, we think that it would be a chance for these brands, the sponsors, to be associated with a really one-of-a-kind, exciting, cutting-edge experience that will get a lot of press coverage, and we'll get a lot of people talking and a lot of people excited. And on our side, we hope to have some money from it, you know, capital infusion, but also leverage their marketing. We would hope that they would want to incorporate us into various marketing and advertising campaigns that they do, and so we would get marketing out of it and publicity, so we have to spend fewer dollars on marketing ourselves.
My name is Judy, and I work at Blazing Cloud, and we have classes. So our primary business is consulting, but we also do classes, but permanent classes, and we're looking for sponsors so that we can sponsor scholarship students and that kind of thing to make it more accessible, just like what you're saying. So that's my work. And then outside of work, I have two areas in which I'm extremely passionate. One of them is getting more women into programming. So we have a meetup group called Women Who Code. Oh, cool. And we're, yeah.
I was there yesterday.
Oh yeah, awesome. Hi, I was there too. I'm really involved in Women Who Code, and we're looking for sponsors to have more events and more awesome things. And the second thing I love is esports. I don't know if anyone else has heard of esports, but it's electronic sports, and so it's instead of watching football, we watch people play StarCraft. So it's a one-on-one video game. It's like chess, but with it's like chess but with armies, and in real time. So so the first question is, what does sponsorship mean to you? And so for me, it means mutual growth. So like for people like me who organize 70-person parties to watch these StarCraft events together, it would be great to have a sponsor like a gaming, if someone that manufactures gaming accessories or does streaming, to sponsor this event, to help more events happen, to create more gamers and more spectators, so that they can use their, so that their company grows also. So it's like growing both sides.
So there's an example of value proposition, like you were talking about, how do you language it?
Yeah, when I get the message is gaming shall inherit the earth, that's the message I want to
Hi, my name is Claire. You asked a question about what is a sponsorship. I find your answer very clever and very short about too much and to connect on with the key audience. And I'm here just to listen because I don't know how you do that. You do the sponsorship in America.
Okay. So I think you're all right. I think one thing that I didn't hear from everyone though was what I consider the #1 aspect of a sponsorship, which is it's a relationship. Like what you're doing is you're building a relationship with whoever you're trying to sponsor or who you're going to sponsor. And that's the big approach that I take when I start to speak with someone, is that I'm not just trying to get dollars from you, I'm not trying to just get food from you, I'm not just trying to get beer or wine from you. It's like I want to build a relationship, and a relationship that's a symbiotic relationship. So Judy, when you talked about kind of this mutual benefit and mutual growth, that's kind of where I talk about symbiosis as being a very key thing to what is sponsorship, because sponsorship can take many forms. And the big question that I was hearing is, how do you talk about this value? How do you convince people, to sponsor you? And you have to build that relationship. That's like key to. That's where I think sponsorships start. So more than anything, it's a sponsorship, and then it leads to everything else that you guys are talking about. But that's the biggest thing to remember going in, is what you want to leave with all the time, no matter what, is a relationship. Even if you don't get dollars out of it, you want to leave with having a relationship, because that's someone who will help you in the long run, and that you can help as well. So another big part of sponsorships is figuring out where they fit in to your event, to your product, to your service, anything. And that can be really complicated, because sometimes you just say, well, I need to have $10,000 to make my event successful, and I'm going to get it from whoever will give it to me. But you want to have things that, the startup terms is like kind of product market fit. You want to have a fit with the sponsors you're going after. You don't want to have someone who really goes against the audience that you're looking at. You want it to fit to who's coming to your event, to answer the question as to why they're coming to this event. So that involves several things. Sponsorship's a lot about marketing. So how do they fit into the marketing side of your event? Are they giving you the resources to promote the event? So for example, with Parisoma, what we've done that has been extremely successful for us for events, so this is really for a lot of people with events, is we get media sponsorships. And we also do a lot of media sponsorships for people. And we consider them community sponsors because we're a community. And those cost no money. And we build this as symbiotic relationships by telling people, first, more than anything, what we're going to provide to them. We don't ask for something first. We want to tell them, this is what we're going to give you. And that's it was a very important way to kind of phrase the sponsorship negotiation, as I say it, is you're going to be asking them for something, but they need to know what they're getting. And if you start on that foot, being like, this is what we want to provide to you, you're going in with a much different context and saying, give me, give me, give me. And that's a lot of what happens when people are asking for sponsorships. It's like, hey, we need this from you, we need that from you. And they don't feel, you got to make them feel the love. That's how I'll put it. And so that's how we got Parisoma on the map, is we told people, we're a community, we want to help you guys get into our community and spread what you're doing and share your events with people who know us. And then we started asking people, would they let us do that for them in exchange for putting our logo up on events, for example. And all of a sudden, people started asking us, would we do it for them? So we get requested now to please share events for people. We do some outreach, but every day we have someone asking us, can you sponsor this for us?
So what does that mean?
What do you mean?
Does that mean that you put their logo on your website? Or?
So that means for us with events, what it means is, so we have our newsletter, it's usually through social media channels. So between our newsletter and Twitter and Facebook, we hit about 10,000 people. So they want eyes to their events, and we host a lot of events. So there's a very symbiotic relationship there with anyone who's hosting an event. And we're very happy to do that. So we don't do it for any event. It has to align with also what our values are and who our community is.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be happening at their stuff?
No, not at all. I mean, we promote a demo, founder showcase. We'll do the co-working unconference pretty soon too, even though it's Austin. Typically, it's all everything in the Bay Area. We do stuff with Giga Home as well, and Venture Beat, which runs demo, but also smaller events too. We've promoted events at the Hub, hackathons across the East Bay, different meetup groups. It's really, we kind of set a limit on how many we'll include in a newsletter, and then kind of stagger. We don't want to have someone in for 8 weeks. We want to give everyone equal time. And it's typically what we do is we ask for example, in our case, we ask for them for a discount code for our members in our community to give an additional benefit to people. And as we like to describe this space, it's a community of communities. So we're trying to bring all these different groups together under kind of this big umbrella. And that's how we got this space on the map, was through really doing that. And like I said, that cost us $0. It cost us time, and it cost us, putting value into these people and developing relationships, as I said earlier. And that's what's really key to this. And it's the same goes for when you're asking for money. I mean, it's building a relationship. And it's easier, of course, it's easier to do sponsorships when you're not asking for money. And we're going to get into money pretty soon.
Sorry, can I just ask a question? So the media sponsorship, say Giga Home is like, hey, Roadmap's coming up. Love for you to tweet about it, spread it through your social network, and put it in your newsletter. Will you then ask that they put your logo on their website?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so typically for that example, a lot of events, especially big productions, will say, hey, we'd love for you to send a dedicated mailing where they have all the HTML done for you. Here they give you a banner ad and all these things, and we don't do those. We just tell them very honestly, like, we don't send dedicated mailings for events because we've seen big drop-offs. People really don't like it. It feels like spam.
Right.
We don't have a place for banner ads on our website. We don't do that. So what we tell them is, like, we'll put it on our website in our event section. We'll put it in our newsletter, and we'll do a couple tweets about it. And send us, give us a discount code and put up our logo. And if you're doing a blurb, put up our blurb, and we go on any printed material where you're putting media and community sponsors. And so our logo has been across the whole area for things like this. And you have to, we're in a unique position where we focus around events, so it fits to what we're doing. If you're focused on sports, you just have to tailor it to the context you're working in. That's the big thing for all this stuff. So let me just go to the next slide. So, does that answer your question, Chelsea? Okay. Occasionally too, with Giga Home, for example, with Roadmap and bigger ones, is they'll also do referral fees. So any ticket we sell, we'll get a 10% cut for those sales too. And that's like a sponsorship that we offered to do, and we're getting money from, or people ask us to do it and they're giving us money to sponsor them. I mean,
even with a discounted,
even with a discounted ticket, yeah. We made $600 from Structure for just having it in our newsletter, like last year. It was fantastic. That's a great type of sponsorship. So I think, the question?
No.
Okay. So I think big thing is, like, what does sponsorships bring? I think there are 4 key things that sponsorship brings. One is validation to what you're doing. When you have you know, people sponsoring you is because they have trust in you. You built this trust, and people start to see, oh, hey, you have Microsoft as a sponsor, you have VentureBeat as a sponsor, or Giga. These start to be reputable sources that are backing you. So that's good for, you know, typically the niche you're trying to acquire, the customer you're trying to acquire, is when you have validation from people who are trusted, they're going to trust you. Community, that's all these colorful people here. I think that's a big part of sponsorships. Is one thing that a company is looking for when they sponsor you is they're talking about your audience. That's your community. So you're building community with these sponsors, and you need to talk about how their community is going to benefit from this sponsorship and how your community is going to benefit from this sponsorship, because they're obviously doing it because there's a fit, but there's also going to be some people who don't fit in, and they were trying to bring more people into that community. So you really want to be, you know, put the content, put the value on that as well. Resources. So that's what our little water over here is. I looked up photos for resources, and that was the nicest one I could come up with. So these are like non-monetary resources, which is a much easier type of sponsorship to get. Food is a little bit difficult, but not as difficult. But wine, for example, and alcohol and snacks and everything like that, we've had vitamin water and Hansen soda and pop chips and pretzel crisps. Just drop us product for free for all these things in exchange for being a community sponsor and partner in the space. And we put up their logos as partners, and they come to events sometimes and set up tables as well. And they, you know, they're just trying to get their word out, and we, you know, want to give things to our people too, and give them a new avenue for that.
Can I say something about like beverages and wine and beer? And like those companies have whole departments that are dedicated to spreading their product, and people whose jobs it is to give stuff away and to create these relationships.
Yeah, and what you'll find with a lot of groups like that is they'll allocate a certain amount of product or budget to sponsorship of giveaway material, and usually that's on a quarterly basis. To keep in mind, so you want to get them early in quarters, because you will have times where you're asking someone to give you wine or drinks or soda even 2 weeks before your event. Sometimes they'll just be like, we've hit our quota for this month or for this quarter, and we're not going to be able to. The other thing too is it's when you come to money. It sometimes becomes a lot easier to sell a sponsorship for a specific thing rather than for example, a whole event or a whole show. It's just like, we want you to be our food sponsor, or we want you to be our drink sponsor, or we want you to, you know, if you're doing a show, we want you to be the intro sponsor. You know, when you're doing the web series, so, you know, we want you to be like the credits sponsor, or something like that, you know. If you tie the sponsorship to something that's much more tangible than a very wide thing, it becomes easier for a sponsor to see value. And then of course there's money. And money is the tough one, because it's a negotiation, it's people have budgets. When you're talking to big companies, their departments, and you know, we've been able to, I would say over the last 2 years, we've probably secured, including between resources and money, probably $250,000 or so in sponsorships. In terms of monetary value, it's probably between $100,000 and $150,000 in the last 2 years in sponsorship. And that was, a year ago we were in a space that was a fifth of this size, and we've only been in here for a year. And the more challenging sponsorships that I've had to deal with, monetarily speaking, are when I'm trying to get people to sponsor this whole space. So we have 3 sponsors that pay us monthly to be sponsors in the space. And part of what they get is we provide them value, really, which is access to the community, so they get to hold events here at no cost. they get their logos in the newsletter. They get to, one is a legal firm, for example. It comes and they do free legal advice for the people here. So that's on top of them paying us. We've also given a new resource to our community too, at no cost to them as well. And for them, you know, they're looking for new clients. You know, that's what a sponsor is typically looking at, customer acquisition. So you have to keep that in mind in your conversations always with the sponsor, is what is the benefit for them? That's the hard thing in the pitch, because you're asking them really for stuff. And whenever a company hears the word sponsorship, they're like, you want something from me. And it's sometimes a hard barrier to get past. So that's why the approach of what we're giving to you is a really important first step in every conversation.
How do you say that without sounding douchey though?
So the way, I mean, that's the way I do it, where I talk about I bring the word symbiosis into all my conversations with sponsors. It's very much about, like, you know, good relationships are symbiotic relationships. You're going to benefit from us, and we're going to benefit from it. Versus, like, you know, we're going to give you X, Y, and Z, and it's going to cost you, you know, A. That's just, you know, that's you just being a salesperson. And nowadays, people who have the sponsorship dollars are community managers and our marketing people who are realizing the personalization of a lot of events and sponsorships. And so that strikes a chord with people when you talk about it, you know, in terms of this relationship that you're wanting to build with them. And that I always try to express it that this isn't, we don't want it to be a one-time thing. You know, I always talk to sponsors, you know, and you have to do with us for events is we'll get sponsors and then you have to do the dance all over again, you know, sometimes with the same people. And what we try to do with certain events is get recurring sponsors by saying, you know, they hated it almost as much as you do to have like the same conversation thousands of times about sponsorship. So we've always talked, and the way we did it with people, for example, who sponsor the space, is that there is more value created by knowing that there is a commitment to the sponsorship than a one-off approach. Because when you have commitment, you're telling them, I'm investing in you and you're also investing in me. And that's a really good way to phrase the conversations. And sometimes what happens is you'll say, let's do one event first, for example. It's like, but I don't start with saying let's do one event first. It's like, let's see how we can do something together and make this a better commitment where you guys are going to gain more value. Because I've talked to Microsoft, I've talked to Yahoo, I've talked to Google, where they're all like, you know, we sponsor these huge conferences for $50,000. And we have a booth, you know, a bunch of people come by, and we give out a lot of tchotchkes, and then that's the end. There's no relationship past that with those people who come in. You get a lot of emails, and all of a sudden they get a newsletter. And for us, we're just a smaller audience than typically at those conferences, for one. And two, we just say, we want to provide you more value by really getting to know the people that you're trying to get to know. They don't want to just see your logo, they want to know who you are. You want to know who they are. They're your customer, and you need to know who they are. And so if phrasing things in a way that people are going to be learning and gaining from the sponsorship more than just having a logo up, which is what a lot of people try to sell sponsorships around, really can turn the tide in your favor when you're talking to someone.
Can you give some examples of what that would look like? I mean, basically, it sounds like a lot like joint venturing in a sense. And one of the exchanges is you're helping them to leverage their brand while you're getting whatever you need from them. So you said it's an exchange.
Yeah.
So what kinds of things could you offer in addition to exposure to your people in your workspace?
Yeah, I guess it would. It varies depending on the company.
So let's take the legal. Let's just use the legal office for example.
So legal. I mean, so the things that we offer to the legal company are several things. One is there's branding. So their logo is in our newsletter that goes out every week to 5,000 plus people. So it's not just people in our workspace, it's people outside, and we have people who are not just in the Bay Area on our newsletter too. They're on our website. If Todd, who is the lawyer who we made this deal with, is ever speaking at an event, for example, we see that, we'll help spread that for them. And that's not contractually obligated, it's just something you do. And then what for them, they get, he comes in once a month and does, like 3 or 4 hours and sits here. And whenever I have anyone who comes in who's either actually a member of the space or not a member of the space, and typically a lot of international entrepreneurs, for example, who are starting to have legal questions about, I want to start my company here, or I need to, or I have a company somewhere else and I want to move it here because I want to raise money, I introduce them to Todd. And I don't introduce them just to Todd, and I tell Todd this, I tell him, like, I want to give people options, and I'm going to always introduce people to you too, but I have another 2 lawyers who I'm also going to introduce them to. And right away, every single time I make an introduction, within 5 minutes, Todd has replied and is getting a meeting. And he's gotten, I think, 3 clients out of us already. And that's more than paid for the sponsorship already for him in terms of dollar value. And then it's inviting him to events and stuff that we do too. It's not just, it's actually being a part of the community. So that's how we do it with the legal firm, for example. Legal firms, especially, have a lot of sponsorship money to go around too, as well as some financial firms. A lot of money to go around. And you have to think of, what are, well, I'll get into the pricing in a little bit. So first, now I want to kind of, how do you find sponsors? That's a really tough question sometimes for a lot of people. So for us, a lot of what we do for any event that we're hosting around a certain topic, we look at other events around that topic and see who has sponsored. That's the easiest way to see who is putting resources to sponsoring these kinds of things. So it can be big events, it could be small events, but for us, we go on to Meetup and look at things. We look at who's sponsoring the GigaOM conferences and the VentureBeat conferences too, saying, okay, this is a company who are startups that have venture capital money, so that they have a marketing budget. And it's not bootstrapping, and they want to start gaining exposure. Also looking at competitors. What are your competitors doing? Who are they working with? Do you see them reaching out to anyone if they're doing events, if they're doing whatever you do, and they have the types of people that you're looking for? That's a very easy way to see them. Very, very easy research. Third, of course, is your network. Leverage everyone you know. It's really easy, especially here in the Bay Area, to ask for intros to people.
If you're reaching out cold to say a new brand or something like that, you may know or might want, something that our community has to offer, who would you talk to? Would it be like a marketing person? Would it be an events?
Marketing. I would typically go after marketing. And you can typically, really use LinkedIn a lot too if you're doing something cold and you want to look up people, and just use their search functionality, type in the company name, and type under title marketing. And you ideally want to find a director or someone who's right below a director who's making decisions and has budget. So that's kind of figuring out, yeah.
I was gonna say, something I do to typically find the right person, even if you're not connected to them on LinkedIn yet, you can usually do a couple of cross Google searches and find them, and then email them, and then if they're on Twitter, find them there and follow them, and then send them something on Twitter to let them know that you've emailed them. That way you touch them at multiple points and they know your experience.
That's a very good way to do it. And they just, like Chelsea said, that makes them know you're serious. And in terms of cold emailing, you know, I try to refrain from using the word sponsorship in any first email that I make to someone. I just say, you know, for example, we're doing this event. We've seen you've been involved in other things like this, and we want to see how you can be a part of what we're doing, how we could help you, how you could help us. I'd love to have a call or a meeting. And face to face is always the best. And if not, do a phone call. But always actually speak to the person. You don't want to keep going back in email exchange until after you've had that person and you can really kind of make them feel how much you care about what you're doing and how much you're going to help them because of them helping you.
That gets back to the word relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Building a relationship with
Yeah.
people, and you can't do that asynchronously.
Occasionally, I mean, it's very nice, and there does become a moment, depending on what you're doing, where you might have an event and someone just emails you and says, I want to sponsor this. How much is the sponsorship? And that happens to us with certain events. And it's a delight. I mean, it really is. When people are just like, you don't do any work, and it's a cold check, essentially, instead of a cold call, being like, can we sponsor this?
I don't know, I don't have a few slots open.
Yeah.
Very hot here.
What's your budget? And then, you know, and then it's kind of the grand old kind of research which goes into all of those, which is, you know, use Google, use your friends, use people. I mean, you are whatever you're doing, you're an expert in your field. So really think of your field, and also think of people and think a little bit outside of that too. Who is someone who you really might not think is interested in this? So for example, that's why legal is such a good example. Is because everyone has to use lawyers for something at some point. And lawyers know this. And so that's why they sponsor many, many, many things.
Here's my question about that, and I'm learning a lot from this, but one of the things I'm getting, if you're talking about leveraging a relationship, if I'm looking for sponsors, I better make sure I really want to partner with them, meaning authentically I can do the work that I need to do to help to raise their profile in the space that I'm also working in. Because if I'm not really in alignment with them, all they'll probably get is a logo space. I won't look to nurture that continued relationship. And you know, usually when you're looking at, I need money, and you're like focused, you don't always take into consideration what the relationship is that comes with that particular type of money.
Yeah.
So how do you get around that when you're in that position where you need sponsors? And you may have an opportunity where someone is willing to do it, but you're not really sure that you want to partner with them. Have you had that kind of experience before, or?
Yeah, there have been moments where we've had kind of maybe we would say we're at a point where we would maybe take one or two more sponsorships, and someone comes in and we're just like, either they're not a good fit or we just have too many similar sponsors. And it's it's a challenge to like want to say no to money.
Yeah, but then not all money is good money.
But not all money is good money, and I'll be the first to admit there have been sponsorships that we've taken which have just been very quick one-off sponsorships, and a relationship doesn't build out of it and doesn't come out of it. But they know us and they talk about us, and we've never had a negative comment from a sponsor, even one-off sponsors. And so it's a challenge. I mean, there come moments where you say, you know what, I need this, and I know this person will add value, but it might not be someone who I work with again. And that's okay. You know, not all of your sponsorships have to be this, love relationship with whoever is sponsoring you. Those do take time. I mean, the ones who are going to always back you and want to continue to back you, you really want to spend the most time on those, because they're also the ones who you'll then be able to go to and say, hey, we're doing this, I wanted to see if you're interested this time, but if you're not, do you know anyone else who might be interested in doing it? And they'll give you the people, and if you have that type of relationship with them, then you'll trust their referrals.
Right. Okay.
So closing. Closing is the hard part. Everyone wants to know how to close the dollars. Usually after my first conversation with someone about sponsorships, I tell them I will be sending them the options. And that's after a first email, which is like, let's talk about how we can work together, not mentioning sponsorship, and then having them come in and talk about, well, this is what we're doing, we see what you've been doing, here are some of our options on ways we could work together. I tell people first, for example, here, I talk to them about, do you guys want to throw an event here? Just not even asking them about our event necessarily. It's like, what would you like to do here? And sometimes they say, oh, well, we're actually thinking of doing an event, or we're thinking of teaching a class. How could we do that with you? And then it's like, well, here's some of towards the end is where I get, here are some of the things we could do. We could do a meetup where you sponsor other meetups, not necessarily your own, sponsor meetup, or you have an event and become a sponsor of the event, or you sponsor the space. And I have an email that's prepared that kind of talks about the options, and this is where you get into sponsorship kits, which a lot of people do. And we've done sponsorship kits before where you have your gold sponsorship is $2,000 and you get 4 tickets to an event and you get premium logo placement and you get to say a few words at the event. And those are important things to have, at least for yourself, even if you're not going to send them to someone, because a lot of times people are going to make the decision on whether they're going to sponsor you in the conversation and not based off of a PDF that you're going to send them. They might need it to show a manager and be able to go back and track what they exactly got for it. So have it. It's very good. And it's where you can get creative too, and have certain types of things sponsored that you might not expect you could have sponsored. I'll kind of get into that on my last slide. But it's really it's about the pitch, as I say. It's all in the pitch where you're gonna close them, and it's all about talking about how this is a relationship and the value that you're giving to them. Yes?
Would you say that, in your first conversation, you're looking for more ways to give to them than you're looking to get out of it?
In the conversation, yes. In my mind, no. Do you want? So I know going in that my goal at the end of the meeting is I'm going to send an email that this is how much I'm looking for in a sponsorship, and let's have a follow-up call or meeting to discuss it. And it's always, and have a clear, you want to have a deadline on that. You want to give them a deadline. You don't want to say, hey, let's talk again next week. You want to say, let's talk on Tuesday. Can you talk on Tuesday so we can, finish this? You want to be able, you want to set constraints so that, especially you yourself, don't start spending too much time on something that's not going to come to fruition. Because very quickly, you can get these answers very, very quick once you've gotten to that point. And sometimes there'll be meetings that I have where I won't send that email right away if I just have a feeling that I just need to have one more conversation with them or one more call with them, or send them more information being like, here are all the events that we've done, just so you can see, and I'd love to get your thoughts, and then kind of have another conversation about how we can bring you and get you involved with what we do. But definitely 95% of my conversation is about what we're giving to them, not about what we're getting. 5% is about what we want from them, and that's it. And I think you'll hear from most marketing people, it's just about give me, give me, give me. That's what they hear. Give me this, give me that. I heard you did this for someone else. Will you do that for me? Rather than just saying this is what we want to give to you, and we think you're a good fit. That's why we're reaching out to you. We're not reaching out to you because we see that you have dollar bills hanging over your head. It's that we see value for our people in a non-monetary sense. That's what you want to make them feel really confident about that before you bring up money. And it's easy to get into money. You know, some people, I've seen people come in and they're like, hey, well, we have 5 types of sponsorships from $250 to $10,000. And that's like the second or third sentence out of their mouth. And you're just like, you're only asking me for money. That's it. And I think people can easily see through that. The occasions where that's not true is when you're like a big established conference, and like South by Southwest, for example, and you're just like, it's $100,000 to sponsor this event. But even then, you're still cultivating a relationship. But they're very clear on that. When you're dealing on a smaller scale, you know, it's 95% about them and then 5% about you.
I know that when we did bar camps, we would try to establish like sponsorship levels, even though it was kind of a small gig. And I think it really helped people understand what we were asking for. Like, you don't have to like imagine, was it $200 or $1,000? It's like, yeah, our sponsors, you know, we look for $500, or you can sponsor a meal. But the ask has to be fairly clear.
Yeah.
You know where a good spot to look at that, I think, is it's actually Indiegogo or even Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Because it packages it up nicely in terms of your thinking about it. Like, how do you convince people and actually give them something in return? That's helped me.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, so I kind of talked about this earlier for our context. So here's an example of our logo with a number of different events and the logos that are surrounding our logo. Great people to be around. This is one of these events was Giga Home, one of these for a Giga Home conference that 1,000 people attend. Founder Showcase, 600 people attend at Microsoft. Everyone, it's venture capitalists, it's startups, it's like our niche. And then the one on the right was Warm Gun Design, put on by 500 startups, which some of you in the room probably know, some of you don't, is a very well-known incubator in here. So we are probably on at least 4 of these things, if not 10 of these things a month. I mean, that's the extent to which it goes. And to the point now where, you know, Vader TV, which is the t-shirt Peter is wearing, they ask us every time they have an event. Once you do it with a person, they will tell you every time they have an event, hey, we're doing this event, will you do this again for us? And so we don't even need to have the follow-up with them at that point. The relationship is clear, it's established, and they ask us to do it. And then we get to, you know, and then we just set terms. We say, yeah, it's fine. Sometimes people reach out to us like 3 months before an event, and we just say, yeah, we'll do this, but we're gonna only start doing it a month before your event because we don't want to clutter our events newsletter, for example, and just have this one that just sits there for 3 months. So, and this, I mean, like I said, the cost is time and commitment. Money is $0, and it's when you are an actual product or a service, it's harder because an event organizer, for example, where you're trying to do a sponsorship, they know you have money. They know you're like revenue generator. Like if you are Salesforce, they're not going to give you a media and community sponsorship. They're going to be like, you have money, pay us money. So unless you can provide your service and your service is going to be needed by them, and you can show that they need it, and you're creating a value add by them using your service for what they're doing, that's when you kind of can get into a negotiation where maybe it's not a monetary value that you're doing. So that's just something to keep in mind. And this kind of goes back to what Chelsea was saying about Indiegogo and Kickstarter, which are really good examples to look at. Is you can decide on how far to go with sponsorships. You know, you can say, you know what, we want you to sponsor the chairs. We want you to sponsor the lanyards. We want you to sponsor the t-shirts. We want you to sponsor the napkins. I mean, you can, depending on what it is that you do, like get a bit creative. Sponsor students if you're looking for student sponsors. Sponsor a person. So it doesn't have to be just the customary, like, you know, here's our here's our packs, you know, your logo gets different sizes based off of the type of sponsor you do. You get into just online material versus online and print material. You know, those types of things. You get 5 tickets versus 1 ticket for free for an event, for an example. Get creative. You know, we did a Settlers of Catan tournament, which is a board game. That's a very geeky board game, which I actually play a lot at home. And we called it the Startup Catan tournament. We had 32 people pay to come to the event, $30, and Microsoft sponsored it for $1,000, and Twilio sponsored it for $500. And with that money, we bought 8 Catan boards. We got pizza and beer for everyone. We had a prize, which was a 3D Catan set, which is like a $400 set, which my roommate happened to win, which was awesome.
So what did you sell that based on? Like, why did they sponsor it?
Why did they sponsor it? Well, that was an example of like, this was also something that was creative. That wasn't something common for them. They weren't just getting the regular pitch of like, hey, we're a tech event, come do this. This was something fun. This was something people not coming to listen to people talk about raising money for your startup. This wasn't them coming to talk about, you know, the IP issues and things like that. It wasn't even demos of startups. It was just like, come hang out for what ended up the people who lasted until the end, like 7 hours. Come hang out, drink, and play a game, you know.
Is it weird to charge? You charge for the event and you got sponsors.
Yeah. We've done events where we do sponsorship and we don't charge for the event. At this point, because of how many events we do and quality, we still typically charge. I mean, if you look at even, for example, big conferences, they're, you know, GigaOm's diamond sponsorship for most of their events is, I believe, $75,000, and their tickets for those events are still $600. You know, I mean, and that's like event business for the examples of GigaOm, VentureBeat, and TechCrunch. They're making millions of dollars a year in the event business, and that's through sponsorships and ticket sales. So that's where, you know, we do a type of sponsorship with meetup groups where we'll give a space to a meetup group for free if they can find a sponsor to do $500. That doesn't include food and drink. But so we say it's not your cost, but, you know, find someone who would like to sponsor this. And we've done that. You know, OkCupid sponsored Hack Night here one time. It might have been the Women Who Code one, I think. We did one Women Who Code one here. Twilio sponsored a Women Who Code one here before. I really love Twilio. They're great. You know, it kind of, you have to pick your poison. And for us, because we're just a community space, there are certain events that we do want to offer for free, and there are certain ones at the same time that we don't necessarily want to offer for free because it might be too many people. We've learned a lot from our metrics that free events tend to have lower turnout. So you have, usually our rule of thumb for us is a paid event gets in between 45 and 55% attendance of the RSVPs. A paid event is about between 70 and 85%.
Say it again, free is 45 to 50?
45 to 55. And then for a paid event, it's typically around 75, depending on the event. I mean, sometimes you have like close to 100%, but the average, I would say, is about 75%. But you're able to better kind of figure out your numbers based off of just like food and drink, for example, that you need, knowing those statistics. And we didn't run statistics on our events until the beginning of last summer. I was finally like, we have a spreadsheet that has, let's start 20 events a month, which includes classes like this now, and says, okay, 100 people RSVP'd, how many people showed up, how much revenue we made, what was our cost, and what was our profit. And we do that for everyone. And we have targets for different things because we do just straight rentals of the space for the right type of event. Even some of the tech events that we do here, people will charge tickets for, but they'll rent the space out too. Some are these free meetups that are sponsored, some are the events that we host ourselves, and some are ones that we co-organize with people. But we track all of them now to kind of really make sure we're hitting our numbers and that attendance is right and everything like that. So that kind of, that kind of wraps it up on my side of the end of my presentation class. But so it's open floor for questions.
It seems like parisoma is kind of a unique example, and it's sort of the kind of thing where like once you're successful, then it's easy to say how you're successful. It's
Yes.
like you're like